Welcome to UTM webinar series number 12. Greetings, Assalamualaikum, and good afternoon. Wherever you are, okay, I believe you chemical engineering student first year, as well as other audiences around Malaysia and outside Malaysia, welcome to this YouTube CEE UTM as well as ISP Industrial Seminar Profession. Okay, this is a fantastic event that we are having here, and this program is brought to you by the School of Chemical and Energy Engineering under the course SETK 1511, which is Industrial Seminar and Profession. Okay, and this is also brought to you by Center for Engineering Education, CEE UTM. We have a very fantastic topic today, which is called Engineering Ethics into the Future. So let's see what we are going to discuss today, okay? We have fantastic panels that we carefully crafted and designed so that you will get the best out of what is engineering ethics. But before that, let me just introduce myself. My name is Dr. Zakia Mani bin Zakaria. I'm from the School of Chemical and Energy Engineering, UTM. I am also the fellow researcher for CEE UTM. I joined UTM in 2008, so that's like 12 years ago. And before that, prior to that, I was a practicing engineer for about 6 years plus. Okay, but before we proceed, before I proceed to introduce the panel, let me just ask you to please kindly subscribe, like, and share this this YouTube channel. Okay, this is UTMCE YouTube channel. Okay, maybe there are some of your friends, maybe inside UTM or outside UTM, other universities in the engineering discipline that may find this topic useful. So it's better to share. So sharing is caring, right? Okay. Before that, let me just urge you, please kindly listen to the session tentatively, because we will have a lot of important points to be discussed. Take notes and please ask questions. You can ask questions and also jot down your question at the chat box, okay, on your right-hand side at the YouTube channel. Okay, so your question will be picked up later by the panel. So I will be reading the question, and the most suitable panel will help to answer the questions. Okay. Those of you who are not the chemical engineering student, you are welcome to sign in the attendance. Okay, we'll be giving you e-certificate for doing that. For the chemical engineering students, if you want to fill up, I think, okay, maybe you can do that. And one more thing, for the chemical engineering students, please sign in or scan the QR code attendance. Okay, that's very, very important. We would like to record your attendance for this. Okay. One more thing. I would like to remind that there may be some jargons or some descriptions, some phrases that will be discussed or mentioned in Bahasa Malaysia. So please just take note on that. Okay, just be careful. So we'll try not to mention that a lot. Okay, I would like to now introduce all the speakers. Okay, we have three panels. Okay, the first is IR Professor Dr. Raj Kumar Durai Raj. Let me just briefly introduce him. Okay, IR Prof. Raj Kumar is a professor at UTAR, University Tun Abdul Razak. He graduated from Salford University in Manufacturing Engineering in 1999. He is currently the Dean, Academic Quality Assurance, Division of Quality Assurance, and lead auditor for MIRA. Okay, his involvement at the national level includes appointment of associate director, material and manufacturing with the Engineering Accreditation Department, Board of Engineers Malaysia (BEM), and he has held various academic leadership positions, including head of department, deputy dean, and chairman of University Accreditation Committee. I would like to please welcome Prof. Raj to the screen.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Yes, hi, Prof. Raj.
Hi,
Prof.
how
Raj.
are you?
Okay. I'm fine, thank you. So you are doing fine?
Yeah, I'm very fine. Thank you for having me this afternoon. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. It is an honor to have you here, Prof. So we are very happy that you are here, and we believe your expertise, your experiences, especially with BEM and also this accreditation, will also help and give good exposure to the students, especially all those people who are going to be young engineers later on. Okay, but
Okay.
then I need to introduce the other panels as well. So let me
Sure.
just read. Okay. We have the second panel. Okay, which is IR Francis Yam. Okay, let me just read his detail. He is an HRDF certified trainer and the co-founder of GPROTD Resources, a training and consulting company. He graduated from Oklahoma State University, USA in 1997, both in BSc and also MSc in civil engineering. He has involved in civil engineering related works for more than 20 years. He spent about 12 years working as a senior manager of environmental health and safety compliance for Walmart. That's an international successful company. Okay, so we need to ask him more about this. Okay, where he gained his compliance and ethics experience. Okay, before starting his own training and consulting services in 2018. So he has been in the US for such a long time, and it seems like he just get back to Malaysia, and now he is having his own business. Okay, his expertise are on pollution prevention, safety, compliance, and ethics. Okay, so let's bring in IR Francis.
Hello, good afternoon. Selamat sejahtera to everyone. Thank you
Yes,
for
hello. Hello, good afternoon, IR Francis. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you for asking. How about you?
Me fine. I'm excited to be frank. I'm excited. That's Prof Raj. I think Prof Raj is also very excited to be with the students as well as the other audiences in the world, in Malaysia and the world. Hopefully, there are somebody outside from Malaysia. So if there's anybody from outside outside Malaysia, please introduce yourself at the chat box. Okay. So we'll get back to you, IR Francis, as well as Prof Raj. I would like to introduce the third panel. Okay, the third panel is Mr. Amru Daud. Okay, he is currently involved in the SHE managerial role in CCM Chemical, Pasir Gudang. He graduated from University of Bradford, UK in 1999. He started his career in 2000 as a process engineer. He was appointed as factory manager in 2002 for Gold Coin Specialty Sendirian Berhad at the early age of 26 years old, which marks his management career. So this is amazing. At 26 years old, he has been a factory manager. Okay. Subsequently, he joined Evergreen Fiberboards in Berhad, a high-quality wood-based engineered company as the operation manager. Amru was formerly a freelance consultant of DANT Energy, Sendirian Berhad. He has expertise in process engineering, process safety, occupational safety, and also transport safety. Let's have Mr. Amru Daud in the screen.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera to all the distinguished guests, to the panels as well, to the moderator, Dr. Zaki, and all the students and the viewers in this channel.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Amru Daud. Is also a very, very exciting moment to have you aboard. So you have your lunch already, Mr. Amru?
Yes, I did.
So I believe all the panels have had either their very heavy brunch or lunch, because we will have a long session today, which we will be discussing such a very important topic. Okay. Let me just inform the panel that so far we have about 385 viewers watching from YouTube channel. Okay, so that's a fantastic record so far for the time being. Okay, let me just briefly mention what we are going to do. Okay, so for the sake of the audiences as well as the panels, I would like to inform that we will be conducting this forum in 2 sessions. Okay, the first session we will be asking roughly like maybe 10 to 14 questions. So depending on the situation, okay, the panel will be answering their questions okay, giving information, providing comprehension, which is related to engineering ethics. Okay, after that, we will get the questions that you guys, okay, the audiences, the students, the chemical engineering students, to be answered. Okay, so you guys, the students, audiences from wherever you are, you are welcome to give questions, and then we will read your questions and get the panels to help answer the questions. Okay, okay. So we will have that answer question from the audiences for about maybe 15 to 20 minutes. After that, we continue with the second round. So we will be providing real example, real situations where ethical issues may be discussed. All right, will be discussed. Okay, so after that, maybe around 4:15. Okay, we'll stop, and then we will get to answer more questions from the audiences. So after that, we will try to conclude and then end the session. So the audiences, you are welcome to ask questions and so on. Okay, so please just write down the questions there, and then we will show your questions on the screen, and we will read your question and then get it answered. By the way, for the sake of information for the panels, okay, Prof. Raj, IR Francis, as well as Amru Daud, the chemical engineering students from UTM are inside their first year, in first year students, and they came from various locations. Okay, I'm talking about the international students. So we have about 140 to 145 local Malaysian students. We have about 30 to 35 international students. Okay, these students come from various places, from Yemen, from Bangladesh, from Turkey, from Syria, from a lot of places, from Jordan, many places, from Saudi Arabia. Okay, so there are many of them from Indonesia, from Thailand as well. Okay, so I'm sorry to my students, I cannot recall every country. Okay, but then maybe if you want to discuss the context of international context of the code of ethics, it's very much welcome. Okay, so the first year chemical engineering students are now in this week, they are going to discuss and study about engineering ethics, and that's the main reason we are bringing this forum to be discussed. Okay, I have spoken a lot. So I'm going to start asking the first question. Okay. Okay, so engineering ethics is very important, especially to engineers, because this is engineering ethics, and many people, maybe due to they are not properly trained inside during their university. There's no particular subject, so we are quite blur. Maybe we can say blur, or maybe vividly clear about engineering ethics. Maybe I would like to direct the first question to Prof. Raj. If you can help to explain basically what is engineering ethics.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zaki. Thank you all for having me today. Welcome to all the students. Basically, engineering ethics. So when we talk about engineering ethics, okay, but we need to break it down a bit and look at the word ethics. So what is ethics actually? So ethics is basically to do with your moral principles, moral choices that is made by each person to his or her relationship with another. Yeah, another here could be another individual, could be a professional colleague, a relationship with your organization, relationship with your suppliers, relationship with your basically with anybody that you come along, that comes along with you. I mean, even your friends. So we need to understand the word ethics first in terms of a moral choices that you have to make. Okay. Now, when we talk about engineering ethics is being narrowed down to your profession. That is your professional code of conduct. Yeah. So various professional bodies will have their own professional conducts, but if you actually read the professional conducts, all of them are basically same in terms of making the right decision, the right and the wrong decision at your workplace. So you have a proper moral judgment pertaining to your work. So, I mean, most of you are first year students, okay? You have not gone out to work. But one area of ethics that we can talk about with regards to students are basically do not plagiarize your friend's work. Do not copy your assignments, do not copy a report, or do not plagiarize from the internet and then submit it to your lecturer and claim it as your own work. So that's not ethical at all. Yeah. So this is something that that we need to understand, like ethics, and then there's engineering ethics, and that ethics that we call, that's the moral characteristic, is it actually comes from you itself. You see, it comes from your background, it comes from where you grew up, it comes from that. Yeah, so we need to understand that also. Okay, Dr. Zaki, yeah, I think I'm done with that that question.
All right. Thank you very much. So basically, the important thing is actually to understand, to comprehend the word ethics. Okay, and then its relation to engineering. So that's okay. That's a very, very excellent brief introduction. Because we are going to keep it more complicated after this. Okay, so we start easy. Yeah. Okay, so that's a very good answer from Prof. Raj. So I hope the students can get that, as well as the other engineers outside there who may be watching. Okay, I'll move the second question to IR Francis. Okay. Why engineering ethics is important? Okay, IR Francis. Why engineering ethics is important? Can you please illustrate, give some illustration so that we can better understand why it is very important?
Thank you, Dr. Jackie, again for having me here, and thanks for the question. First of all, I want to congratulate the students. You have chosen engineering as your field of study. That's a good start, and it's also good to start with engineering ethics. Engineering ethics actually can be studied. You may want to take note of that. Why engineering ethics is important? Because it can help engineers lead a more successful life on the personal and professional level. Okay, and this is another note that I ask that you take. If you do not remember all the things that I say at the end of the day, please remember this: do the right things right. Do the right things right to be successful. Okay, take note of this. So you may think this way: do the right things right to enjoy a smooth sailing life. Okay, so you may also think, if you do everything right, the right way, okay, your life will be smooth, okay, and peaceful. By the way, whether you agree or not, in my opinion, to be successful doesn't mean to have a lot of money. To be successful is leading a fulfilling life, okay, on the personal or professional level. Okay, that is why, engineering ethics is important to help us to achieve that. So, if you check or you study engineering ethics, you will learn, okay, some guiding principles in terms of rules and guidelines for engineers to make the right decisions when facing ethical issues. Whereas making the right decision is important to satisfy their obligation to the public, to the clients, okay, employers, and the profession. Regarding the example, to explain this, I want to ask you to think about this. Okay, the case that I present here. Let's say we have a company A, and company A has a chemical engineer who is the owner, who is the professional engineer with practicing certificate. It means that the IRA is a licensed professional engineer who can sign engineering documents and engineering plans. He has 3 staff engineers working for him: a civil engineer, a mechanical engineer, and an electrical engineer. So the company has about 20 years of water treatment process design experience for factories, pre-discharges. So what this means is that all together, the 4 engineers, okay, the chemical engineers, the owner, IRA, and the 3 other engineers, the staff engineers, collectively, they have experienced 20 years of design experience for water treatment process for factories discharges, right? Pre-discharges, before the effluent, before the water allowed to drain into the river. Okay, the water need to be treated to meet certain water quality criteria, and that they have the experience designing the process to make sure that the water has met the criteria before it is allowed to drain into the river or surface water, surface runoff. So let's say now that there is a project, the Selangor government announced a request for proposal from qualified engineers to design natural water treatment process along Sungai Gong before it drains into Sungai Selangor. If you follow Malaysia's news recently, back in September, there was a river water pollution problems that occur. Okay? Factory discharges contaminated the river water of Sungai Gong. Okay, and this Sungai Gong actually drains to Sungai Selangor before the water from Sungai Selangor drain into the water treatment plant. Okay, so that is just the background of this case for your information. So the request for proposal specifically calls out a minimum 20 years of natural river water treatment process design experience. Okay, let me repeat this. The proposal specifically calls out a minimum 20 years of natural water treatment process design experience for river water. If you still remember what I said earlier, the company A has 20 years of experience designing water treatment process for factories discharges. Okay. But here, the request for proposal calls out the minimum 20 years of natural river water treatment process design experience. So these two are not the same thing. The two experiences are not the same thing. Now that we have COVID-19, okay, and everybody can imagine that the economy situation is not very good. As a matter of fact, we are facing very difficult economic period because of the COVID-19. So company A is also struggling to get enough work, okay, to sustain its business. Okay. So here, the thing that we need to think about, okay, before I post the challenge questions, here I want to introduce you to the Board of Engineers Malaysia's Code of Ethics. Okay, one of the code say that a professional engineer with practicing certificate shall undertake assignments only if he is qualified by education and experience in the specific technical field. of that assignment in which he is to be involved, which means that a professional engineer with preceding certificate must only do work that he knows, he has had experience and education in that field that he is to be involved in. What is the intent of the code of ethics? Here, we need to think about. Okay, this code of ethics from the Board of Engineers of Malaysia, the intent is very important. At the minimum, it helps protect the safety, health, and welfare of the public. Okay, that is one thing that all engineers, okay, must know. Okay? And therefore, with this code of ethics in place, okay, assume that, okay, let's assume, okay, the code of ethics is known, okay, by engineer A, IRA, and that if he submit the proposal, okay, proposal for the project, to work on the project, the question here, is that ethical? Okay. Is it ethical? Okay, you may post your answer if you want to, feel free to do so. And I will provide you the answer here. It is not. Because there is a code of ethics very clearly stated that a PEPC must only perform work, okay, for the area that he has had experience, education, okay, in the field that he is to be involved in. Because here the case the case here is that engineer A, IRA, has 20 years, okay, the company has 20 years of experience for designing water treatment process for factory discharges, which is different from the requirement of the request for proposal from Selangor government, which is designed for natural river water treatment process. Okay, that is very important. Okay, so now if engineer A submit a proposal knowingly that his experience is not the same as needed or required by the Selangor government, that is a violation of the code of ethics, and that action can be taken against him. So if that happens, you can imagine what will happen to his professional life and also his personal life. Okay, you can imagine whether he will have peace or not every night when he is going to sleep. Then you can imagine how successful he can be living that kind of stressful, maybe fearful life. Okay, now let's think it the other way. Assuming that the code of conduct is, does not exist, okay, or IRA doesn't know or understand it, and he submitted a proposal. Let's think about what could be the anticipated outcome or consequences. IRA, let's say the code of ethics does not exist, so, or he doesn't understand, okay, so he has probably no clue, right? Then he submit a proposal. Here still, okay, it can be a big problem as well. Okay, it can be a big problem as well, because the engineer's role most important to protect the safety, health, and the welfare of the public. Okay, that always stands. But without understanding, without knowing the code of ethics, that is a I think that is an opportunity. Okay, an opportunity. Why I say so? Because there is no guideline that help IRA to make the right decision. Okay? So now you can think the other way. Without the guideline, that engineer A or IRA could not make the right decision. Therefore, having the code of ethics, the rules, is actually helping IRA. Without it, IRA could make a mistake. So this is why engineering ethics is important. The code of conduct is important. I think that's about it.
Yes. Okay. I'm fascinated with your story. I mean, the way you try to build up the story and how you provide the example. Yeah. So that's a very good way of explaining this. So from your explanation, okay, I Francis, we can say that we need to do the right things, right, to be successful. Okay, so even without engineering ethics, if they can have some good common sense, they can actually know what is right to do and what is not. But then we have the engineering ethics as a very good, precise, black and white document for them to obey. Okay, all right. Thank you very much for your answer. Okay, I'm going to move on to Mr. Amru. Amru, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Okay. We now know about what is engineering ethics and why engineering ethics is very important. Okay, so my question to you is, what triggered engineering ethics to be an important element that need to be taught? Okay, need to be teach to the students or to the engineering students or to new or young engineers from the beginning. Because you see, previously maybe in the curriculum, it's not properly being documented or being taught. So is it important for them to learn from the beginning?
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Zaki. Okay, I like this question very much, and it has been explained briefly just now by Professor Raj and also R. Francis. Okay, but before I go to that questions, let me explain to you, especially to the students out there. Ethic is a culture, first of all. It's not something that you value. If you work alone, it become your value, but it will not become a culture in the engineering societies. That is very important. So to have this knowledge, to have these openings at the beginning of your study life is actually very important, because eventually the successful of engineers in Malaysia or anywhere in the world, core value, which is ethics, is actually paramount, very important, especially when you are talking about safety, which is I'm going to discuss later. Okay, but before we go there, let's look at the engineering first. Engineering is actually something like a very highly technical field. This is very important. You have to understand this concept first. So when we are talking about technical fields, we are talking about qualified and a competent personnel to become an engineer. You must be qualified and you must become competent. Okay. So when you are talking about competency, so now I try to elaborate further so that you guys can understand, okay? We are talking about skill, we're talking about ability, we're talking about knowledge, okay? And as you go in the become an engineer one day, and then when you are in the field, when you're in the factory, where you're in, for example, oil and gas industry, in whichever industry, one of the crucial important thing is actually your technical solving problem. This is very important. Okay, and you must instill the ethics, a core value, the integrity when you are doing this, because engineers sometimes was asked to do impossible. Why and how you want to find the balance between your ethics, between your integrity, and fulfill the requirements It's actually a very fine line between these two. Okay, so come back to the competency just now, when we are talking about skill, ability, knowledge, and technical problem solving. We're also talking about the qualified and to become a competent person. In order to have this, we need education and experience. And not only these two, I would like to add on one more word, which is very important: hands-on education and hands-on experience. Like, for example, Professor Raj mentioned just now, it's a very truth. If you plagiarize something from the internet, if you copy your assignment from your friends, you do not have hands-on experience in education. You will never understand the principle, the concept, the basic principle of the engineering there. Same when you go to become an engineer. If you do not have hands-on experience, okay, you just a sideline engineers, okay, you don't try to understand what is the basic principle and understand the concept of certain unit operation, you may not be able to understand more, appreciate more the concept of engineering. That's why I would like to stress before we go to the ethics, is actually on the hands-on education and experience. This is very important. Okay, so there is an obligation on ethics, like Professor Francis just now mentioned, on a law, which is I'm not going to elaborate further, okay, because we have lots of obligation. There is outline law in many countries and so on. But what I would like to mention here is actually, whenever you deal with engineering matters, okay, it become like a very what should I say? The best word is to describe now. In the modern term nowadays, people always talk about safety, whether you like it or not. Okay, and this is where the ethics play part, because you are putting a risk in what you design. You are putting your risk at the parameter that you try to give a specification on certain dynamic unit operation. This is what you are doing now. So when you are talking about this ethics, I would like to categorize on engineering ethics, which is maybe Professor Raj will have elaborate further when you are having a time to talk to him. But 4 elements that as an engineer in the field that I would like to mention is, first is actually your ethics in ensuring safety and health, including environment, when you become an engineer. That's the first thing. Second is actually ethics towards other engineers. Okay, for example, how you're dealing with other engineers, how you appreciate other engineers' design, how you appreciate modification done by other engineers, and how you want to instill and ensure that you are work closely with them to make any improvement. Because there is a core value there. There must be some excellence in yourself and in the knowledge to ensure that things were right from the beginning. Okay, and then the lastly is actually the ethics. When you become as a referent of subject matter expert, this is very important, because when you are engineers, when there is some problem, like I mentioned just now, a technical problem solving, you need to understand that you will always become a reference when there is a problem. What is actually the limits? What are actually the design like? Why it has to be designed in such manners? Okay, and these actually need those 2 elements that I mentioned just now: a hands-on qualification. The hands-on, I mean, you know what you are doing, you learn, and you can apply what you have learned in the university, in your career, and also about your technical field experience, your hands-on experience, which is you need to learn. Because impossible when you be graduated to become an engineer, then the next day you of course you have the education, but you might not know the techniques. But you need to learn the techniques from the senior engineers. So the fourth ethics that I would like to mention is actually when you become subject matter expert, you must have ethics, which include the design, limit of process parameter, the application. Okay, and then the durability of the equipments that you design, the compatibility, and you must be able to explain in details what are actually the things that you have done to that particular unit operation, or what you have done to that particular issue. This is actually very important when you are talking about ethics. These 4 elements, avoiding excluding the law, like I mentioned just now, on the safety, on respecting another engineers, and then to become a subject matter expert, you have to have instill these three culture while you are very young, especially when you are in the universities. That is what I would like to elaborate further. Professor Raj comment just now. One of the ethics that a student should have is actually copying. Be punctual, when you're supposed to come to class. Okay, not to copy students, your colleagues' assignment, or when you have a presentation, maybe you just another person who just keep quiet at the corner, where another 2% or one of your worker people giving all the explanation to the lecturers. These are actually something, like I mentioned, is a culture. You must put that from the beginning, so that in the hope that when you are working and when you start your career, this culture is actually being being given to other people in your societies. I think that is why why we need to take care the ethics from the beginning. Zaki.
Okay, thank you very much. Wow. Okay, this is getting hotter and hotter now. Okay, thank you very much for the explanation. I like the fact that you have mentioned about the hands-on experiences. We need to have that, and also the culture, the moral values, and so on. And yeah, it's true. We haven't been really taught our time. Okay, Prof. Raj, Amru. We haven't been properly taught during our undergraduate about engineering ethics, and I think it's very, very critical and important. And the students nowadays are very, very, I can say, fortunate, because they are being exposed to this. Okay, and then just now you mentioned about ethics to be responsible for environment, which is the case now in Selangor, in the Klang Valley. So which is very sad, because I believe there are a lot of engineers in that companies that actually releases, the unwanted things. Okay, thank you very much, Amru, for the insight of your answer. Why the students need to adopt the moral values as well as the ethical values. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. Okay, this is for Prof. Raj. Okay, Prof. Raj. Okay, the students. Okay, let's say now let's put this into context. Okay, the students, and then fast forward to 4 years from now, they become an engineer. Okay, and then they know about engineering ethics, but what happened if they partially fulfill this engineering ethics? So it's like half they follow ethics, another half they have something, maybe other interests, or they are trapped into certain angle. I hope you understand this. Maybe can you please elaborate on that? Your voice.
Thanks to Dr. Zaki, and also thanks to the other two panels for a good, interesting discussion. Okay, the question here is basically, applying engineering ethics, and whether you're going to do it fully or you're going to do it partially. Okay, whether can we come to a 50-50, and say, yeah, all right, okay, I will apply engineering ethics when I feel like it, but when that opportunity presents for me, well, for certain reasons, I will just set aside the engineering ethics. Okay, now we really have to look at this carefully again, because we when you talk about ethics, it's just a word. But when we look at the original meaning of the word ethics, it comes from the Greek word ethos, which actually says moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. Okay, it comes back down to that individual, Okay, so I was reading some of the comments in the sections here, and some of them are saying, oh yeah, I mentioned earlier that you come from a different background, which means you will have a different ethical standards. No, don't get me wrong. What I mean is that you may come from different countries, or you may come from different background, different cultures, But essentially, all culture will say, do not cheat. It's not going to be one culture. It's going to say, yeah, go ahead and cheat. Yeah. All cultures will say the same thing. You're not supposed to cheat. All culture will say, be punctual to school. That's the reason why you go to school. The reason why you go to school is that you have some sort of ethical behavior or moral behavior inculcated in you, which means you go to school, you have a time, you respect the teacher, or in other words, you respect your elders, you respect your father, you respect your mother. So it's to do with the moral principle of the person itself. Yeah. So when you have to look at the ethics itself, there is three things to ethics. One is the principle, the moral principle, the outcomes from it, and also integrity. Yeah, integrity is very, very, very important. So when we look at this ethics itself, ethical behavior, we can go down to three. I'm now moving away from engineering ethics, but just looking at ethics at first. Is you're looking at three schools here. Normally there is three schools. One is called the virtue ethics, which means how to live your life. What kind of person do I want to be? Yeah. So what virtues brings me closer to this goal? Which vices prevent me from achieving it? It's to do with your behavior. Yeah. This is the main principle here. Okay. And integrity is being the primary value. If you know it's wrong, it's wrong. Yeah, if you know it's right, it's right. So it's always, the thing is, you always go back to doing the right thing. Yeah. Then the other school of ethics is basically to do with consequentialist ethics. So which means, is it good? Okay. So it is about key question informing ethical decisions. What impact is my behavior having on the world or your corporate organizations and so on? Am I doing more good or harm by my behavior? Yeah. So I think IR Francis was giving some examples earlier about the operations of company and all that. Yeah. So you can come back to this basic question: what impact is my behavior having on the world? The world meaning the world surrounding you, your colleagues, your corporation, and so on. Yeah. Is my behavior making the world a better place? Right. And then you have got another one called the Ontological Ethics, which is the third school of ethical thinking. In other words, is it right? What are my ethical principles telling me I should do? What does reasons required of me regarding my treatments of others? What duties do I owe? How do I decide between conflicting duties? Yeah. So you may have to do some reasoning, you see. So arriving at ethical principles through reasoning. So this is where it goes back to the question of whether you can fulfill it completely or partially. Okay, but if you look at these three school of ethical thoughts, you can't do it partially. You got to fulfill it fully. Yeah, because the decision you take may actually have a long-term impact, not to the organization, but to the member of the public. Yeah. So what does this three school of ethical thinking actually says is that, for example, I give you an example, an analogy for all of us to your personal well-being. Yeah. So one may say, if I ask you the question, what is the best way to achieve a healthy life? One is through good nutrition, another one is through exercise, a third through a spiritual discipline. Some may actually say public health, life measures, and so on. Each of it is actually vital, but is inadequate. You have to bring everything together. So what I'm saying, going back to the question, is that you have got the professional ethics and you have got your personal ethics. So you got to actually look at this both. What type of person you are. Yeah, am I doing the right thing? Is it the right thing to do? What will be the impact of my decision to a member of public? Yeah. So sometimes you have to ask this sort of type of questions. Now I give you another very simple example. You see, so you have drivers on the road. Okay, you have drivers. I'm sure you all drive cars, and I drive a car. Okay, but generally, when we see people crossing the road, We don't want them to cross the road, you see. We speed up the car. We don't actually stop for the pedestrian to actually cross the road. Okay? But you see, the moment is we don't really think about the impact of our decision, you see. But why don't you just look at the person that is crossing the road as someone that you don't know? So who cares, What do I care? Yeah? But what if the person that is crossing the road is actually your father, your mother, your sister? Would you do the same thing? So you have to ask the question again. So you see, so same thing, going back to what I said earlier, the impact, the impact of that decision, of not fulfilling the professional code of conduct that Mr. Amru and also IR Francis was talking about. I don't want to fulfill it. I partially fulfill it. What do I care? I'll do it partially. But then what will be the consequential? What will be the impact? Well, it's to the member of the public, but I don't know the member of the public anyway. What do I care? But what if the member of public was actually your family members? Where do you put yourself then? You see? So you really need to think about this, Sometimes what do we mean by partially and fully? Yeah. Okay, you work for an organization. Sometimes the organization will have to take a business decision for economical reasons. A lot of the ethical examples out there in the internet is basically to do with business decision taken by the management. The engineers have actually pointed out the issues there are, but the management says, no, we are going to still go ahead with it because, this is going to bring us a lot of money. So there's always a tussle within the organization between a business decision and also the professional ethics, business ethics and professional ethics. So there is a tussle between these two. So, but it goes back down to you as a person at that personal level, whether whatever you're doing is right or wrong. You must be guided by that. You must be guided by that. And you must alert your superiors. Then you can go back to what the code of conduct actually says. Yeah. The code of conduct is just some words written, with some fancy language there, you see. It's a question of whether you want to read it or not. Yeah. So the thing is, it all comes back down to you at the personal level. You want to be an engineer. The day when you decided you want to be an engineer, you want to enroll in an engineering school, that day itself, you have taken an oath, a silence oath, to protect a member of the public. That's it. You don't have to be taught about engineering ethics in a way. You have taken that oath. So your 4 years of engineering of an engineering school is basically to get you to equip your knowledge to perform your job professionally. That's what it is. But you have already taken the oath of protecting a member of the public. So going back to this question, there's no such thing as fully or partially. You got to. It's got to be fully, because what will be the consequences of it? Yeah, what will be the consequences of it? Many years ago, the consequences of it was civil. Basically, it's got to. In old days, if you look at the cases, the court cases, or that's been filed on product that actually fail, it mainly is to do with civil. But nowadays, they can actually file a criminal proceeding against you. They can just file a criminal proceeding against you, and they can sue you. And as a result of that, you will be legally held responsible for it, and you can even end up fined and being jailed. So that is the consequences of it. Once that happens, then you can basically forget about your engineering career, but let alone forget about any other careers. Why? Because you are not a person of integrity. You don't have integrity. You're not honest. You're not integrity. There's nothing of that with you. So why should we actually hire you for a job, let alone for any other profession for that matter? Okay. All right, Dr. Zaki. Yep. Okay. I hope my answer is clear to all the students. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe it's very clear. So the message is just, you need to be just fully ethical. That's it. There's no such thing as partially ethical. It's like when you want to go to some place, you need to pass through the door. You cannot stay at the middle of the door. Right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Luckily, we are recording this, so we can get back to the important points that you guys have covered. So far, it's very good. I think it's going to be very beneficial to the students. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. Okay, this will be directed to IR Francis. Actually, I will combine the questions together, okay, because it's kind of related. So this is something to do about codes of ethics, okay? How and what are BEM or IEM roles in ensuring engineering ethics are really taken care of? Okay, that's one question. And then, can you please explain more about codes of ethics? And should the engineers actually memorize the codes of ethics? So sometimes, because the codes of ethics is like a very, like Prof. Raj mentioned, fancy wordings, fancy documentation, sentences. So it's very difficult to remember. So should they actually memorize all these things, or what? Maybe you can help to clarify us on this. Your voice. Sorry, your voice. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Jackie. First of all, I think we all can agree that engineers are problem solvers, and that engineers must provide the best solutions or work products, as well as protect the safety, health, and welfare of workers and the public. I think we all can agree on these 2 points. And with such agreement and our observation, okay, we can observe from time to time, they are problems, engineering work failures, type of problems that arise. And if we trace back the root cause, okay, we could find majority of them are related to ethics. Of course, we don't read the ethical problems very well stated in news or media. A lot of times when incidents happen, it goes down to the engineer's design, the details of the design, the materials, things like that, or contractors' works. So very little or minimal ethical issues were brought up. Anyway, knowing that ethical issues do exist, okay, the question here posted by Dr. Jackie needs some good thought, okay? What are BEM and IEM roles in ensuring engineering ethics are really taken care of? This is my answer to this question. BEM, Board of Engineers, Malaysia, and IEM, Institute of Engineers, Malaysia, plays several roles in ensuring engineering ethics are really taken care of. Both of them register qualified engineers and hold their registrant accountable for their professional conduct through enforceable regulations or on professional conduct. So you are engineering students, or we are engineering students. We completed our degrees and we go to the job market, found a job, okay? We have found a job. And the next step, if we seriously want to pursue engineering career, it is the right thing to do to become a member of the Board of Engineers Malaysia, okay? and also register with IEM. Okay. Once we register with these two organizations, okay, they are code of conduct that we must comply with. Okay. And that is the key thing, okay, the important thing, right, for engineers. So now, from a big picture view, one may see Board of Engineer Malaysia as a regulator and IEM or Institute Engineer Malaysia as an educator. The Professional Practice Committee, okay, with the Board of Engineer Malaysia actually assists in matters pertaining to professional conduct and ethics in the engineering profession. It responds it's responsible to hear and determine dispute relating to professional conduct or ethics of registered person, or to appoint a committee or arbitrator or arbitrators to hear and determine each of such disputes. Whereas IEM conducts code of ethics or regulations training course for engineers. So a lot of people can easily, okay, identify, okay, with the Board of Engineers role as a regulator, and the Institute Engineer Malaysia role as an educator. So we there is a need to educate, okay, the engineers, okay, so they can know, they can understand engineering ethics, right, before we punish, okay, engineers who make wrong, okay, or who have done something wrong. We need to educate them so they have a chance to avoid doing the wrong things. So here, IEM is doing the education part. Okay, when an engineer has done something wrong, then we have the Board of Engineers to help, okay, with their regulations to take the appropriate action against the wrongdoers. So that answer the question regarding the role of both the BEM and also IEM. The next question, engineering ethic codes, okay, is a guide of principles, okay, as I stated, could be rules, okay, or guidelines designed to help engineers conduct business honestly and with integrity. Okay, what does that mean? It simply means do the right things right. Okay, for example, okay, this is the code of conduct. An engineer shall not undertake responsibility as professional engineer which he does not believe himself competent to perform. Okay, that is a code of conduct. Okay, so the next question, should engineers memorize all this engineering ethics code? Well, I memorized a lot of things when I was young, when I went to school. Okay, that is one way of learning, one ways of learning. It may not be the best way. Okay, to me, it is not the best way. So, based on my experience and observation, it is best to, number one, know and understand all the engineering ethic code. Know them, understand them. Okay, very important. Second, remember by practicing the engineering code of, okay, the engineering ethics code. Remember by practicing, okay, in personal and professional life. Okay, you practice, you exercise, automatically you will remember them. And three, share the engineering ethic code as appropriate whenever an opportunity arises. Okay, through discussion. Okay, uh, and like this kind of forum is good. You learn and you also share. Okay, and I believe I answered three questions, Dr. Daki.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much for the trigger. So for the students, hopefully they know that BEM is actually the regulator, as well as the IM is like the educator that actually provide trainings, events for them to learn. Okay. And I believe when you mentioned just now, do they need to memorize? Actually, they don't need to memorize, right? So they just need to understand the concept behind it. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, IR Francis, for that. Okay, I'll move on to the next question before we take a break after. Depends. We will take a break soon. Okay. So I'm going to direct this question to Mr. Amru. Okay. Amru, ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What? Okay. We can see that nowadays there are many things happening in the industry, in the company, as a result of ethical codes is being broken. So, what can actually happen if an engineer break the code of ethics? Maybe if you can share one example, perhaps the consequences that can happen.
Okay, when you have equipment or unit operations, or you are creating something or you're designing something, whether you like it or not, actually you are creating risks. Okay, especially if you are talking about chemical engineers, you are creating a risk there. Okay, obviously when there is a risk, we're going to talk about hazard. I'm not going to elaborate further about hazard. Let's talk about risk. So your duty somehow or rather during this line of work is to mitigate your risk at the lowest possible. Okay, because you would like to protect society, you would like to protect community, including your own staff, including yourself, including your people beyond your factory boundaries and so on. You have to manage this risk. But if you do not have ethics, you will never ever be able to reduce the risk to the lowest level. You will never be able to do that, because you will never apply. Again, come back to the first thing that I mentioned just now. The basic principle of engineer will not be applied. You will not have hands-on experience how to mitigate the risk from the equipment, from the unit operation that you have. This is exactly what IR Francis mentioned just now. Okay, so whatever it is, when the risk is actually hanging, we just there, it's just waiting a time to happen, and it will happen if you are not dealing properly. The problem will still come back to you. That's why I always mention this to young engineers. When you are talking about the integrity, when you are talking about the ethics, you must not only this ethic must not only be practiced in you, but it also has to be seen being practiced by other people as well. People must see that you are practicing that, because we would like to create culture that I mentioned just now. Okay, so this will give a biggest influence to the wider community. Okay, because you need to bring the risk at the lowest level possible. You have to mitigate them. Otherwise, you will have another case study, like maybe in Bhopal, in Piper Alpha. I believe that in university you study all these process safety elements and accident that happen. So this is actually the consequences of you if you break the ethics as an engineer. If you are talking about example, I have one example. For example, a very well-known company that we are dealing with. Actually, they are supposed to designing some unit operations. I try not to reveal so much about this issue. Actually, okay. The problem with this. Unit operation is actually it does not function according to what we plan. It does not function according to what we anticipated it's going to be like. So when we have a meeting, when we have a brainstorming, we discover that the engineer who designed this unit operation, actually coming from Europe, just for your information, they rely too much on software. They rely too much on the software. They do not counter check and double check the calculation. So the flow rate of a certain element in this equipment actually reduced by 90%, which is make the equipment is actually a total failure. So we have to stop productions. I'm not saying that it was done purposely, but I'm saying that ethics, like Professor Raj said just now, is actually go beyond. It's not whether you are willing or you are not willing or you are purposely doing a mistake. No, it's actually also about how you instill that culture in yourself to double check, which is come back to our original discussion. My original discussion is actually for you to have a very good basic principle of engineering and also to have a hands-on experience. Otherwise, you will rely too much on the software, and the software we calculated based on what you key in. If you don't double check, that is the consequences. And at a certain point, it will delay and the plant will stop. Maybe 1 or 2 days, or it could be 1 or 2 weeks. That is actually an example that I can give it to you. Zaki.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Amru. Yes, I totally understand that situation. I have been there when I was practicing as an engineer before. Something happened, some ill decision or some situation happened, and then the plant stopped, and then production stopped, and then 1 hour will cost, let's say, 2 million ringgit, and so on. So after half a day, it will cost a lot, and normally we will be scolded. Okay, but that's the nature of work. Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Mr. Amru, for the response. And okay, I'll take another question before we. Sorry, I'll give another question to Prof. Raj before we start taking questions from the students or audiences. Okay, so the question for Prof. Raj is almost very related to the question to Mr. Amru, but let's say, okay, here's the question, okay? When engineers conceal the truth, okay, because sometimes engineers want to follow the ethics, okay, but sometimes they are in dilemma, okay? So when engineers conceal the truth, it can endanger the public, okay? What's your view on this? Can you provide any example? I hope you are okay. All right, okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you for the question, Dr. Zaki. Thank you. All right, okay. So we are now in this question about when engineers conceal truth. Okay, so I think let's put it out straight. In other words, this is actually lying. Okay, not being honest, and it's lying. Okay, and that's one principle that holds truth, is that if you lie, or if you're not honest, one day you'll be found out about it. That's always the case. Okay, let it be a year or 2 years or 5 years, it's going to come out one day. Okay, so and then the question is, when we conceal the truth, okay, it can endanger the public. Of course, the answer to that is that it will endanger the public. So one example I would like to look at is, I think Mr. Amru just briefly mentioned it. I think he briefly mentioned it, and I think that's a very good example, which is the disaster at Bhopal, which took place in 1984. Okay, it's been more than 30 years now, and the families of that incident are still fighting for compensation or some sort of some sort of payout, or some sort of justice from that event. But if you look back, I've got one slide on that, on the Bhopal incident. Yeah, so for the students, you can either, this is a well-reported incident. It took place in 2nd and 3rd 1984. But I believe recently also in India there was another gas leak from the LG polymer plant. Yeah, you can actually Google it and you can actually find that information. Okay, so if we go back into this, this was actually what actually led to the disaster. Okay, the major factor in this accident was the curtailment of plant maintenance. There was no plant maintenance in place because of cost-cutting effect. By the way, this company, it's actually it's I think the main parent company is actually Union Carbide, which is actually a United States-based company, and they have a subsidiary in India at the time. Okay, just want to let you know that on that. So one of the cost cutting effect was they cut down on the plant maintenance. The gas, which was the methyl isocyanate, which we call it as MIC, storage tank had a refrigeration unit on it, which would have actually helped to keep that the tank temperature closer to normal, even when the water was added. So basically what happened was they added a large amount of water into the MIC tank, and that actually created a vapor, and that vapor actually leaked out to the area surrounding. Okay, so and one of the things was the refrigeration unit was actually not functioning, and that actually stopped working 5 months before, when I actually studied this case. And the tank was also equipped with alarm, and that was actually not working also, because that was to actually alert the workers about the dangerous temperature that it was getting to. And the alarm was actually was improperly set, and no warning was actually given. The plant is actually equipped with flare tower to burn off all this vaporization, but that didn't actually work also. Okay, so one may actually say, well, it is necessary to take off some of the safety features for maintenance purposes, but to have all the safety system off, it's simultaneously, it's not an excuse, lah. Yeah. So clearly we can see that when we study actually the Bhopal incident, there was clearly a failure at that operational level in terms of maintaining safety and health at the plant itself. And as a result of that, when you look at it means you then start to understand what exactly happened there. Who actually cut the cost? Was it the management? The management cut costs? And then what happened actually with the operation team or the engineering team? You see, did they just decided to follow on that? Yeah. So who is actually responsible for all this? That is not very clear. Yeah. Only thing that when it actually went to court, Union Carbide actually paid this sum of money to a lot of people, and that's it. Yeah. Okay. So then, when we look at this example, because of this series of failure within the operation of the company and also at the management level, so that actually led to this disaster. Okay, and a lot of time when once the disaster actually has happened, that's when you start doing your due diligence. You start looking for clues on why it happened. And then when you actually investigate the matter, then you find that all these safety features are off or is not in place, and who actually made the decision. Till today, this information is not revealed or is not concealed to the member of public. Okay, well, you can say that they got away with it, but they got away with it. But the thing is, it has actually, because of this concealing of truth, because of all these operational failures and henceforth, that has led to a big disaster in place. Okay, that is one example. The other example you can look at is the Deepwater Horizon in the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, I think this is a very famous example. There was even a Hollywood movie made out of this. Okay, and this happened in April 2010, and this actually created a huge environmental disaster. A huge environmental disaster. I think till today, I think the environmental disaster is still there. Yeah, and what did BP do? BP actually knew the problem. They did not take any action, and they actually wanted to look at cost-cutting measures again. And the cover-up part also, BP denied independent scientists and media access to the site. BP had failed to disclose results from his test of chemical dispersants used on the spill. Yeah. Now, these are all well reported. I'm not saying anything new. These are all well reported, but this is something that we can actually relate to. So as an organization, you have the managers who are making the decision, and also you have the engineers there. Yeah. So, but collectively, everybody is held responsible for it. Everybody is held responsible. This is very difficult actually. But as an engineer, or also as a manager, there's always a fine line you have to draw between safety and health, and also cost. But when you don't understand this line, this is what actually happens. And when it actually happens, it leaves immense trail of disaster along the way. Yeah. So I think engineering ethics is very important. I think engineers need to understand this code of ethics, but at the same time, the overall business ethics is also important. And everybody must be held responsible. It's not that when you read this case study, they will say, oh, it is to do with the management made the decision. Yeah. But of course, there will be the engineers who actually made certain recommendations. Yeah, we can go ahead with it. We cannot go ahead with it. And of course, there was I say the manager made a decision. So everybody is responsible collectively. So going back to this question of when an engineer conceals the truth, yeah, it can endanger the public. This concealing the truth can mean many things. Can mean falsifying of data. Even if you adjust the benchmark of safety, that is also concealing the truth. Yeah, you must not just get stuck with the word truth and say, oh yeah, the guy, what is truth here? Yeah, like I said, even if you adjust the operating settings, for example, if you set the wrong temperature or the wrong mixture, yeah, that is also concealing the truth. You're not actually reporting what it should be as it is. And of course, at the end of the day, it's going to endanger the public. It's going to endanger the environment. Yeah, it's going to endanger economics. So these are, I would say, two good examples that are out there for us as a whole to actually ponder on the impact of decision making that is based on economics, purely economics. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. So, and engineers are also a part of it. Also, please don't put yourself out of it. You are part of the team. Okay, you're part of the team, and you contributed to the decision making. Right. Okay. And someday you're going to move away from your professional engineer, and you're going to become a manager, an engineering manager. So you're going to make this sort of decisions too. So we have to understand this, in terms of what impact would it actually have on the member of the public. Yeah. Okay. Dr. Zaki, I think I've covered this question. Hopefully, I think I've explained it well to the students and also to the audience.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much for the explanation. Yes, you have shown a very good example. Okay, Bhopal, those students, okay, as Mr. Amru and also Prof. Raj mentioned, Bhopal, they will actually learn during their safety subject, maybe in their third year or final year. So, but maybe it's still an alien for them, but then it's okay because, okay, the Deepwater Horizon got the Hollywood treatment, okay, which the movies are there, okay. But if maybe in case a lot of people do not know about this, there's also a movie called Bhopal, A Prayer for Rain, which was produced or published, viewed in 2013. So perhaps, Prof. Raj, have you seen the movie? Do you know about this?
I've not seen the movie yet. I'll make a note of that. Thank you.
Okay. So what I want to say, what I'm sharing here now is that we have two fantastic case study that Prof. Raj mentioned, and the two case studies have two movies. So I repeat, Bhopal, the movie for Bhopal is called Bhopal, A Prayer for Rain. Bhopal, A Prayer for Rain, okay, which was published in 2013. So people, you can search the movie. And then another one is Deepwater Horizon. So that everybody knows that, okay, with the superhero there. Okay, so we'll take a break, a short break. We are going to actually get some questions. Okay, we have actually the panels. We have a lot of questions from the students and also outsiders. Okay, so I'm going to read the question. Okay, this one comes from Yong-ji from Penang. Doctor, I would like to ask, in reality, we may be oppressed by our employee or clients. What we can do during facing such problems? Okay, so I'm going to open this, but then maybe who want to answer this? Anybody? Any volunteer? Okay, maybe IR Francis seems smiling. Okay, Prof. Raj is also smiling. Dr. Amru also smiling. Okay, okay, I think let me just choose. Okay, I just choose for because I know the three of you can answer this easily. Okay, maybe can IR Francis answer first?
Sure, thank you. Great question. When a situation like this occur, the engineer may actually approach the professional practice committee with the Board of Engineer Malaysia for advice. What steps or action need to be taken? One thing that I learned from my past experience, documentation is very important. Document. When you document the fact can be used as an evidence. Okay, when you speak to anyone with evidence, okay, that establish your credibility. Okay, so that establish the truth. So that is one channel, and of course you can also approach the Institute of Engineer Malaysia. The Institute of Engineer Malaysia also has the right channel for you to seek advice as well. So that is my answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody apart, maybe Mr. Amru or Prof. Raj want to add briefly?
Maybe Mr. Amru from the industry perspective.
Okay. I understand this question very much. I would like to say there is a fine line, very, very fine line between fulfillment your management requirements and upholding your integrity. Okay, so being a competent person, if you are really someone that really competent, you are really someone that know what you are doing, you must apply your ethics to balance these two. But if you have apply your ethics, I can guarantee you, you will never side to the employer. Okay, you will uphold your integrity because you will tell the truth. But eventually, I have to agree 100%, even 1000% with IR Francis. Documentation. There is no way you can run. If you have proper documentation, that is where you would like to protect yourself, protect your team, protect your department. That is what you are supposed to do. Okay, because eventually, like Professor Raj said just now, it will come back to you. I also mentioned this in my earlier when I answered the question earlier. Whether you like it or not, it will not last long. It will come back to you, and you still need to answer for it. So might as well you have a proper documentation, so you have a lots of evidence you can show to the evidence, because people come and go. But if you would like to maintain at that company, if you have that documentation, you have the story, what is actually happening during all those events. Okay, Lucky.
Okay, thank you very much. Prof. Raj, anything maybe if you want?
Okay, all right. Okay, so this question is basically in reality we may be oppressed by our employee or clients. What can we do in facing such problem? I think the answer that was given by IR Francis and Mr. Amru here, I think will basically, you document the facts lah. What was the action that was taken. But if this is prolonging, my advice is to leave the job and get another job lah. Because because it's not worth risking your career over lah. Because
All right.
because on the long run, it's not worth risking it lah. That's the thing. That's my advice lah, direct advice lah. Leave the job and get another job. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we have another question there. Okay, it's from Anand Ryan. Okay, for fresh graduates that has just started working, what signs should they be aware of? Red flags. Okay, when working with new people in the industry. Okay, I repeat, for fresh graduates that has just started working, what signs should they be aware of? The red flags when working with new people in the industry. I think I want to direct the question to Mr. Amru again.
Okay. Like I mentioned, it's an experience. Okay. There is nothing. If you will be very lucky if you have a very good teacher. Okay, you're very lucky if you have a very good teacher. And then if you are talking about red flags, right? Sometimes even a very experienced engineer dealing with unethical people, they will never find what did these people do behind their backs. Because these unethical people, sometimes they are very good in hiding the truth, in hiding the facts. They are very good in doing that. Okay. To answer your questions, that's why I always mention from the beginning to understand the basic principle of engineering. When they show you some data, calculate, verify, recheck, because not necessarily whatever they give it to you is the right one. It could be different story altogether. When you have a different result, when you have a different parameter, when you have different specification, you can still refer to other people, or maybe you can go to Dr. Google's, to find out what is actually the results. Okay, let's hope that that's what I mentioned just now is about a culture. So hopefully this ethics start from a young generation. When you go to the community, the culture is there. I know it's not easy, and let's hope that you get the good teacher, the good engineers to support you. Other than that, the red flags come back to the basic: calculate, recheck, and try to recheck and verify your figure with other people. This is what you can do. Thank you. Lucky.
Okay, thank you very much. Perhaps IR Francis, you want to add on a little bit?
Thank you, Mr. Amru, for answering the question and also giving me the opportunity, Dr. Zaki. Red flags. I take accountability very seriously. We work with all kind of people, okay? So we shall observe, okay, how each individual around us, okay, take accountability, to himself or herself. One way from the past experience in compliance, let's say that, take an example, I work as a staff engineer, I report to somebody who directed me or instructed me to do something, given me some data or information to perform my work, whether these people are our superior or our peers. I think you can always verify, okay, the information with them, okay, and through documentation, okay. Again, documentation very important, okay. You can verify, confirm the information given by them, okay, that you may use to perform your work, for example, and find ways, okay, to hold them accountable for their words, okay, for their conduct as well, okay, through documentation, okay. We may not see all the red flags, but we must have a way, okay, to get things right. So you have to have the gate, okay, to screen a lot of things. And that if you study, if you learn engineering ethics, the code of conduct, understand them, use them. Actually, engineering ethics or the code of conduct, these are the tool for you to use, Okay, that's all
Okay.
from me, Dr. Zaki.
Thank you very much. Okay, Prof. Raj, hold on. I'm not going to ask you this question, but I'm going to give you another question. Okay, I'm reading directly from the chat area now. This comes from Ali Al Hadi bin Ismail. Maybe this is an Arabic student. Okay, I have a question. What makes you aware of engineering ethics? Okay, the question I repeat: what makes you aware of engineering ethics? Okay, so this is for you, Prof. Raj.
Okay. All right. Okay. First thing is that when we are already in the context of discussing engineering ethics, I will assume that you have already got a job, or let's assume you have already got a job and you're working. All right. Okay. So one of the things that you need to be aware of when you're already in a job is you need to be aware of your job scope. What kind of job scope and who do you report to? Yeah. And then this actually then goes back to what IR Francis and Amru was actually saying in terms of know your code of conduct. Yeah, that's one thing. Know your code of conduct, but most importantly, know your job scope. What are you supposed to do? What it entails? Who do you report to? Yeah. Now, one of the things that I would like to point out is that to solve this problem of awareness of ethics or engineering ethics is to actually ask questions, which a lot of people don't. Why they don't ask questions is that because they don't want to look stupid. That's the thing. They don't want to look stupid in front of their superior, or they don't want to look stupid among their peers. But the key thing is that by asking the right question, you'll get the right answers. So you ask questions, but you have to have a certain approach to asking these questions. Okay. And then when you ask the questions and then you are looking to get answers, so that way you can actually you can say that whether what is being right is wrong, or right or wrong. And that goes back to what Mr. Amru actually said in terms of check your data, do your homework. In other words, what he's saying is do your homework. Yeah. So knowing the engineering ethic is one part of it, but knowing your job scope is another part, what it entails. At the same time, don't just stick yourself within the domain of your job. Learn what other people are also doing in that job. So if you are dealing with an engineer for another department, then you start start to understand what he does, what is his job role is, and how do you relate to him. So by understanding how this thing actually works, by asking questions, by doing your homework, by checking your data and all that, you will then become aware of ethics or engineering ethics. What is being done, how it should be done, what needs to be done, how it should be done. Are we deviating from what needs to be done correctly? Yeah. So that's how you will go. You will learn. So it is actually on the job training. Yeah. And a lot of this, it is the code of conduct is there to guide you, but a lot of it is to do with you. You need to do your homework. Okay, you need to do your homework. How do you deal with homework questions? For example, I can give you some questions in terms of how do you deal with your superiors? What kind of questions can you ask them? Yeah, how do you deal with your peers? What kind of questions would you ask them? Yeah. How do you check this data? Who do you go to check this data with? Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So this is how you have to develop what we call as the communication and interpersonal skill with respect to your job, and then slowly you will come in hand about awareness of ethics, what is being and how is supposed to be done correctly and when is not done correctly. That I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much, Prof. Raj. So hopefully that answers how to trigger the ethics awareness for the students. But then
Yeah.
back again, I think it's back also to the common sense. So that's
Yeah.
what I can add on top of that. Okay, okay. Thank you very much. I think I want to get another question. Okay, the question. Okay, we have a question here from Abdul Rahman. Are improper and forceful retrenchment and terminations of employers during hard time considered unethical from engineering point of view? Okay, this is interesting. Okay, I'm going to direct this question again to Mr. Amru because he has been a factory manager for quite a long time. So he has been dealing with all these things. So, okay, go ahead, Amru.
Okay. First of all, during difficult times, I'm not sure about other countries, but in Malaysia, overall, I think almost more than 90% company, they will try to avoid retrenchment and termination. The management normally try their level best, most of the time that I can see. Normally the retrenchment and termination is somehow already is just like a last resort where there is nowhere to go. The company, there is nowhere to cut costs anymore, meaning that they have to shrink their manpower. And even so, during current crisis, right, certain big company, they're giving a platform to the employee, to the terminated employee or retrenched employee to find another job in another company. They have a network. For example, like say my company is actually suffering due to the COVID. I will try pass some of my expertise, my staff. I will ask Francis, hey, is your company have any vacancies so that my staff can transfer to your company? That is what they normally do. So if you are talking about in Malaysian context now, okay, termination or retrenchment due to economic crisis, I don't think it is considered as unethical now. But it is unethical because the way they're doing it, that is can be an article. For example, they just give you a letter stated that today is your last day. Maybe still, I'm not considered as an article. It could be inhuman a little bit now if they do that. Okay, so I don't think it is unethical to retrenchment and termination, but I only can speak on behalf of Malaysian context, because most of the company that I see is actually they put this as the last resort. If you look at some of airlines in Malaysia, they don't simply terminate people on the first 1 or 2 months of a COVID. If some of the major airlines, they wait until in Malaysia, they wait until the 7 or 8 months, then they start to lay off, and the number is small compared to the overall numbers. So from a management point of view, those decision is necessary sometimes to do, despite it is a last resort. So mean that company or that management has nowhere to go in terms of shrinking their costs. So to answer your questions, if the way is correct according to the law, there is no improper and unethical about it if the company has the justification of doing so. So that's my answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I think I agree with you, Mr. Amru, because sometimes business is business, but then the methodology, the manner, the approach, how they need to deal with this is very, very important. Okay, okay. I think we stop the question and answer now. Okay, we'll get back to the question and answer at the end of the session. But for now, we'll move on to the next question. So I'm going to head this next question to IR Francis. Okay. 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 Just now, slightly before we stop, Prof. Raj mentioned about invoice, falsified invoice. So now I'm going to continue that. What do you reckon on a situation where an engineer acknowledges a falsified invoice? What I repeat the question so the audiences can capture this. Okay, what do you reckon on a situation where an engineer acknowledges a falsified invoice? Okay,
Thank you, Dr.
welcome.
Jackie. Okay. The engineer makes the acknowledgement after the fact. Okay, from this question, this is how I interpret it or how I see it. And majority of the times, this kind of situation occur after the problem has been exposed. It is likely the engineer has not known or understand the importance of engineering ethics and also the regrettable impacts if engineering ethics is not adhered to or followed. So therefore, engineering ethics education, training is very important, right? And IEM may offer some good training. Of course, this is an opportunity, training opportunity. IEM can pick up and offer some good engineering ethics training or education for our engineers to prevent ethical issues uh, as as far as possible to prevent that from occurring. It is very sad learning engineers make this kind of mistake, uh, knowingly or unknowingly. Is a sad thing. It must be prevented. So acknowledging the problems after the fact, it cannot change the I think the impact, the damage that have been caused. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for reminding me that. Okay, so that means the engineer is maybe lacking in terms of the ethical codes of conduct. This can be related to the one explained by Prof. Raj just now, the half, the partially following the engineering ethics. Okay, thanks a lot, Francis. Okay, I have the next question directed to Prof. Raj. Okay. Okay, this will be related somehow to the future. Okay, let's see, to the present and future. Okay, what will be the scenario? What will be the scenario like in terms of the engineering ethics challenges in the future, especially with the digitalization and circular economy massively implemented? So I repeat the question: what will be the scenario? What will be the scenario like in terms of the engineering ethics challenges in future, especially with the digitalization and circular economy massively implemented? Okay, because nowadays we are aggressively going to digitalization. So our meeting now is also digitalized. So hopefully you can clarify that.
Thank you, Dr. Zaki. And okay, that's a good question actually in terms of digitization and circular economics. That's the way we are going now, right? So one of the things that we need to understand is well, we can add the word sustainable to engineering ethics, sustainable engineering ethics, okay? In which where we analyze the issues regarding our moral obligations to future generation with respect to the environment. I'm talking about the environment that we are in actually, yeah. And one of the things about digitization here is that well, we talk about digitization and circular economics, okay. So one of the things, if you look at digitization itself, let's look at that for a moment. Digitization itself, as we are moving, as the technology is moving towards, say, autonomous system, for example, like self-driving cars, yeah. So, so what will be the general ethical questions that can be asked about the acceptability of such systems, you see, such autonomous system. One question is that should system be designed that it can be shut down by a human operator? Yeah, and it might be thought that there's always a need for human intervention, but sometimes autonomous systems are needed where human might make bad choices as a result of panic, especially in stressful situations, for example. Yeah, and therefore the human override would be problematic. So let the autonomous system actually run. Human operators are not always right, nor do they always have the best intentions. Could autonomous system be trusted more than human operators in some situation? So how does it actually relate to engineering ethics? Okay, let's look at it this way. If we are moving towards the future and there's going to be a lot of autonomous devices that is going to be running factories, that is going to be taking responsibilities from operators, then you have autonomous products like self-driving cars and henceforth, then where does ethics come in? Yeah, where does ethics come in? Because the guy who actually designs the car, right, and of course the ethics is there, but as we are moving towards autonomous systems, then the question of ethics actually comes into play. Yeah, we can't really put the blame on the guy who actually designs it, you see. Yeah, so how? It's a very tricky question. It's not very difficult. It's quite difficult because it's tricky. Because how long is the engineer going to be liable for the product? If you're going to have an autonomous driving vehicle, how long is he going to be reliable for the product? He's going to be liable for the product itself. So where does engineering ethics come into play into this in this kind of scenario? And can you allow the human to actually intervene into such systems? You see, or when can you actually allow him to intervene into this in this kind of situation? It's actually a very difficult to look at it, in terms of digitization and circular economy. I'll come to circular economic later, but digitization, for example. Okay,
it's tricky.
So,
it's very tricky.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation. So one example you can actually one way of looking at it, one argument here is that all technologies are liable to failure, and autonomous systems. I'm referring to autonomous system as an example to digitization. As an example of digitization, will be no exception to it. Which is pertinent to the issue of whether autonomous systems should ever be created without a manual override, for example. Yeah, and dealing with the outcomes of such failure will raise legal issue. If a person is killed by an autonomous system, say an unmanned vehicle, who is responsible for that death? Does the law require that someone be held responsible? Because the guy is not driving the car. So you can't say the driver is responsible for it. Yeah? Maybe somebody has actually hacked into the car, for example. Yeah? Or what about the guy who actually has designed the car, the engineer that has actually designed the car? Who do you hold responsible or accountable for, you see, with respect to engineering ethics? Okay? It's not very clear. It's a very tricky area to look at. I've got another example. If you look at the Volkswagen scandal, okay, when good engineers do the wrong thing, like that's what the thing is. So if you look at I've got a slide on that actually, on the Volkswagen scandal, and we can discuss that for a moment. So the Volkswagen emission scandal highlights a dilemma in the engineering workplace. Should an employee, in this case a software engineer, follow orders from higher up, even when the employee knows knows the order to be unethical or even illegal? So this was the question faced by Volkswagen engineers at Volkswagen when their managers approved a plan to alter how the company's diesel engine performed during a test to determine emission level. So the US Environmental Protection Agency actually said Volkswagen engineers designed software that was capable of testing multiple scenarios, including monitoring speed, engine operations, air pressure, even positioning of the vehicle's steering wheel. So the software could actually determine when the vehicle was operating in a controlled condition, such as when it was stationary in a laboratory environment, has it happened during an emission test. So they call this a defeat device, would then operate the engine below normal power and performance, lowering the emission of the nitrogen oxide pollutant. The EPA said the emission level otherwise would be up to 40 times above level allowed in the US. So this information that I'm showing you is actually out there. You can actually get hold of this information. Yeah, this has actually happened during our recent time. So now, one of the things I like to highlight is that when we actually read documents pertaining to this Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal, they'll always say that we are actually referring to the software engineer. Yeah, but I believe as a collective, all the engineers that was involved in this project is responsible for it. Yeah. So this is one example of the future, in terms of as we move towards relying on software systems or artificial intelligence to actually make decisions. They can actually be manipulated. Yeah, they can actually be manipulated. They can actually be manipulated by the company itself who's selling the product. They can actually be manipulated by a hacker. Even for that matter, they could actually be manipulated by the customer itself. You see. So this actually brings a lot of questions on ethics, on engineering ethics. Actually, who do you place the blame on, or who's responsible for it, or who's liable for it, for all this, and how do we actually prove this? Yeah. So this actually is it's a challenge, you see, that we actually face in the future. Yeah. Now with the COVID-19 pandemic, and we are now ever reliant more on technology to do most of our work, and so how do we actually measure this engineering ethics, you see, with respect to digitization? Now, when we look at circular economics, and we look at we're looking at reusing of waste and henceforth, it's the same thing also, because we are now looking at controlling emission. Yeah, we are looking at setting targets to reduce waste and reusing waste and so on. Okay, but this waste has to be processed, and they have to go through certain processes, and so what is the target limit are we setting for this? So all this begs a question. Okay, so when we actually move into this engineering ethics with respect to the future, with respect to digitization, and with respect to circular economics, it begs more questions in terms of who is actually liable for it. All right, thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much. The point that you highlighted is, I personally have never thought about that. Well, we have thought, but then I haven't actually relate it to engineering ethics. So this is something that perhaps it's worth studying, worth researching, because we need to clarify and actually do something about the future of engineering ethics. I mean, in terms of the context of digitalization. Okay, so this is getting interesting, but it's almost 4 o'clock now. Okay, so we need to speed up. Okay, I have my next question, specially dedicated to IR Francis. Normally, there are situations. Okay, here are some situations where an engineer is working in a place, in a company, and then suddenly there are something he realizes that is of something unethical or something wrong. He decided to do something, but he is scared. Maybe if he says something to his superior or his manager or his boss, maybe he will feel that they will dismiss him from work or sack him. So he 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 is in dilemma. So what actually he can do? There's something called whistleblowing. Is it something that maybe can be implemented in such case? Maybe you can elaborate on this.
Yes, yes, sure. Thank you, Dr. Zaki, for the question. Whistleblowing, whistleblowing means calling attention to a wrongdoing that is occurring within the engineering society. Okay, here we are talking about engineering ethics. So under the Board of Engineer Malaysia's Code of Conduct, okay, an engineer having knowledge of any violation of the Board of Engineer Malaysia's Code of Conduct or any law or regulation shall report thereon to employer or appropriate professional bodies, and where relevant also to public authorities, and cooperate with the appropriate professional bodies or the proper authorities in furnishing such information, okay, facts, documentation, or assistance as may be required. Okay, so this is a whistleblowing requirement. Okay, the code of conduct. Okay, in the BEM's uh, engineering ethics. Okay, that is actually the whistleblowing requirement. For example, in the scenario regarding IRA that I mentioned at the very beginning for company A above, uh, an engineer who becomes aware of IRA or engineer A's proposal submission is required to report the case to BEM based on the code of conduct, okay, or which is the whistleblowing requirement. Then the engineer who files the case with the BEM is called the whistleblower. Okay, so if you remember the case that I shared with you earlier, the first question that I responded to for company A, there were staff engineers. One was civil engineer, the second was mechanical, and the third was electrical. Three of them report to this chemical engineer, who is the owner. So any one of the staff engineers, okay, who became aware or who has become aware of this proposal submission, okay, which is a problematic proposal, right, should report to BEM. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So basically, if an engineer found out something that is not right, they need to report it, okay, to the authority or to BM or so on. Okay, thank you very much. Because this terminology maybe is quite alien to the first year students so far. So at least we try to expose, try to reveal the definition of what this whistleblowing is. Okay, all right. We have we have more questions, okay, but then okay, let's do this faster. Okay, I'm going to give this question to Mr. Amru. Okay, you were a student 20 years ago. Okay, so you can imagine this. Okay, in fact, we were studying together. We were classmates. Okay, okay. So how can you? Okay, let's. So I'm trying to put this into memory lane and then try to imagine back what we should do. Okay, as a student. Okay, so how can a student imagine or put in the context of engineering ethics at the present moment? So we are, so this advice should be dedicated to the students now. Okay, how
Okay.
can they actually put into context about engineering ethics for them?
Okay, thank you. First of all, to answer this question, I would like to quote back I.R. Francis' words, which is a very beautifully put. He said that do the right thing right. Do the right thing right. So he never said do the wrong thing right or who the wrong thing right. He never said that. He used the word do the right thing right. So in order to do this, for a student, I believe you must have a passion. What is your passion now? Do you have a passion in engineering? Or engineering is just like your parents' choice for you? Or you just listen to other people that, oh, engineering, you can earn good income money. No, you must have the right passion in order to be here. So when you have this right passion, right, you will try to do all the right thing right, like what I.R. Francis mentioned just now. You will stay away from all the negativity. You will try to, you will come to class punctually. You will submit your report honestly. These are actually all the passion that I have to mention when I quoting I.R. Francis just now, which is sadly I might not be that student 20 years ago. I might not be that student 20 years ago, but that's the things that you need to learn. Because I would like to give one scenario. For example, if like say you are listening to someone who are giving a speech, for example, maybe a student and with the lecturer, or a student with some visitors or speaker, for example. If he has so much of negativity, he will never be agreed with you from the beginning until the end. That could be that he has so many negativity because he don't see the passion of the topic that the lecturer been talking to you. You never see that. For example, if you are talking about BEM, IEM that I.R. Francis mentioned just now, if you have that passion in ethics, you will listen. Or if you don't understand, you will try to understand. That is passion. Okay, same like when you are talking about the engineering, when you're studying engineering, you must have this passion. So when you do that, you will try to instill or to cultivate, a positivity in yourself to see that, oh, I must do this thing right, I must do that thing right. Compared to one student or whoever who having a negative thought from the beginning, no matter how good you are, he will think that other people never practicing good ethics. Whereas in engineering world, okay, in factories, in the industry, I can guarantee you, I don't think the engineer there, to do things that can cause accidents. I don't think so. They must have. I don't think they have that kind of thinking, unless they have a specific reason not to do that. And there are thousands of reasons to do that. Sometimes like falsified document, rushing, time frame, just to please your boss. There is no accountability, like what R. Francis mentioned just now. I just simply just sign or hentam just because I don't have any accountability. It could be other people's problem. Okay, that is actually the problem that we have. So for students, my only advice is actually, if you are in this line, you must have a passion. Why you would like to be why you like to be an engineer, and then the things of the ethics will come. You will grow with it. You will cultivate the ethics with you. So remember, a very good phrase is actually do the right thing right and stay away from a negativity people. People who are always having a negative thought. Zaki.
Okay, thank you very much. So, thank you very much, Amru. So the bring back home tagline seems to be do the right things right.
Yes.
Okay, that's a very good phrase from I.R. Francis. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Amru, for the explanation. Okay, I have now a question for Prof. Raj. Okay. Okay, let's go on. Okay, what is your view on intellectual property theft? Okay, what is your view on intellectual property theft and how it relates to engineering ethics? So I believe just now you have mentioned about this slightly. Maybe you can just further elaborate this. Thank you. Your voice. We cannot hear your voice.
So pertaining to the intellectual property theft, is basically it's basically when we look at the definition of intellectual property theft, it involves robbing people or companies of their ideas, inventions, creative expressions, and all these are known as intellectual property. But we can take it further with respect to our engineering profession. It could also be trade secrets, patents, copyrights, trademarks. All this can be seen as intellectual property. Yeah, and when you are actually an engineer, you are part of an organization. You must look at what the BM Code of Conduct actually says. You see, in 1.2.3, a registered professional engineer with practicing certificate shall not reveal facts, data, or information without the prior consent of the client or employer, past and present, except as authorized or required by law, or when the withholding of such information is contrary to the safety, health, and interest of public. So it's very clearly stated. Yeah. And if we look at the Royal Academy of Engineering UK, they actually a bit more straight, and they say it's to do with honesty and integrity. Yeah, and they say that honesty and integrity are in fact two separate but closely related. Okay, while they have different meanings, it is hard to imagine anyone exhibiting one without the other. Okay. At least someone who's dishonest is unlikely to be described as having integrity. Honesty is not simply a matter of not lying. An engineer may at times need to disclose information which has not been requested directly, which in some cases people may not want to hear. Okay, that's one way of looking at it from the honesty part. But integrity is more difficult concept to define. It has to do with acting ethically, even when there is no personal advantage to doing so. That makes it very difficult. Yeah, a person of integrity will resist pressure to compromise their ethical values and principle, whether that pressure actually comes from the employer, clients, or anywhere else. Okay, they will take the step to avoid a conflict of interest, or where this is not possible, declare these conflicts clearly and do their utmost to avoid improper influence. People with integrity are consistent and reliable, and their action match up to their word. So I've gone down to a bit of basic line with respect to honesty and integrity, because that really is important. If you don't have that, or if you don't understand this, then naturally, what is wrong in stealing, you see? What is wrong in taking another person's idea and apply it to your own? Yeah. So one example is that you may actually be working for a chemical company. You may know their trade secrets, their chemical formulation. Yeah. You may have signed their non-disclosure agreement, but the non-disclosure agreement may have a time. After 6 years, it's not applicable anymore, and you're already with a new company. Would you divulge the information to the new company? Yeah. Or on what condition did you accept this new job? On the basis of you will actually divulge the information to this new company? You see, all this actually comes on the basis of intellectual property theft. Yeah. Why? Because this sort of knowledge or special knowledge makes you very powerful. It becomes a bargaining chip for you. Yeah. But you must understand that it is wrong to do that. It is morally wrong to do that. I mean, to steal another person's idea and then use and say it is yours, and then sell it to make money out of it, or sell the trade secret to another person. This is morally wrong, and if you get caught, you can end up in prison for that. Okay, so it is important that that we engineers, or who embark on this career of engineering, we need to understand what is intellectual property theft. It's basically stealing. Do you like anybody stealing from you? I'm sure you don't like it. So that's the same thing. Yeah. Now, if you look at the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, they actually say it very clearly. Engineers shall respect the proprietary information and intellectual property right of others, including charitable organization and professional societies in the engineering field. So information that comes to you, information that you have access to, yeah, you are not supposed to take that information and pass it on to another party. That's what it actually means. So if you actually study all this professional code of conduct, whether it's the Japanese Society of Engineers or American Institute of Chemical Engineers or American Society of Mechanical Engineers, they all say the same thing. Yeah, they all say the same thing. Okay, thank you, Dr. Zaki. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Raj, for the explanation. Okay, so we are pretty much clear that it's very, very important to actually protect the information. I still remember when I want to resign from my company, as an engineer before,
Yeah.
I was asked to actually sign on a declaration of how do you call that? I cannot just reveal what I learn or what I know from the company. So I need
Yeah.
to keep it a secret. So there's something like something to do in with regard to intellectual property as well. Okay, I
Yes.
have the next question. Okay, this question will be directed to Mr. Amru. Okay, I also faced this dilemma before when I was an engineer. Okay, so can engineer receive gifts from contractors, suppliers? What's your comment? And after that, I would like maybe IR Francis to comment on the same thing as well. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Amro.
Okay. Receiving gift. Just to let you know, in Malaysia, receiving gifts sometimes is allowed in certain company. Okay, depending on their policy. I consider myself lucky because in my company and even in my previous company, we do have a zero gift policy and also restricted gift policy. Mean that there are certain for example, like say you have auditors coming in your company, for example, you're only allowed to have lunch at your cafeteria in the company. You are not allowed to bring the auditor outside the company. Okay, that is what we call maybe they call it a restricted gift policy. And there are lots of big corporations nowadays. They have a zero gift policy, mean that you are not even allowed to have to receive or to give any gift to either supplier or customer. Okay, so when we have this policy, right, one of the things that you have to remember, right, they will categorize, what type of lunch, what type of meals, what type of meeting that you can have with your supplier or with your customers. It must be solely on business, and it might not be one-on-one session. It could be in a group session, so that this policy try to cultivate that you must stay away from non-integrity issues related to the company. Okay, so if you're asking me personally, let's say if you are not coming from the company who have this kind of gift, right? If you are really someone that very having a high ethics, you should avoid at all costs receiving any gift. Don't. That is the best approach. Don't. Because there is no, I have no explanation why. Because based from the experience, when you are stay away from this, it's actually you will be at the correct path. You can your voice is louder. You can say things that people, when you say the right thing, and people cannot challenge you. You have no regret of telling the truth. This is what from my experience. Okay, or in case, like say, for example, I'm not sure, there is a certain occasion that maybe they need to give gift to you. I think the best method is actually to declare what did you receive, and the receiving part must be in public. For example, they give the gift to the receptionist. For example, I give a very simple example during Chinese New Year or during Hari Raya. People give kurma and just a box of orange, you know. In some company, like my current company, even you give one box of kurma, you need to return back. There's no way we can, because we practicing zero gift policy. But in case that you need to receive this, it better to be declared, you know, and send to maybe HR department if your company doesn't have integrity department, you know. So to avoid unnecessary things, but believe me, trust me, that when you have zero gift policy or you did not receive any gift from other people, I mentioned just now, I will mention again, your voice is actually stronger, your voice is actually louder, people will listen to you more. That is actually something that you cannot bargain, and the price is actually priceless. That is where you want to, you know, that is, you have to go to that direction. Zaki.
Okay, thank you very much. Very, very strong, solid answer. Okay, very clear. Maybe, Ira Francis, you want to add on a little bit on that? Maybe your perspective?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, and Dr. Zaki. Thank you, Mr. Amru, for providing that answer. What I can say, I want to reiterate what Mr. Amru said. You know, staying away from gift is a good thing. As a matter of fact, I take this caution note. Gift is dangerous. Remember that. Gift is dangerous, and
This is
fortunately,
another question from you. Okay.
gift is dangerous. Fortunately, for engineers, we have engineering ethics. The Board of Engineers of Malaysia has this code of conduct, which is the tool that we can use. Okay, according to the BEM's code of conduct. Okay, engineers shall not solicit or accept any consideration, financial or otherwise, directly or indirectly, from outside agents in connection with the work for which he is responsible under, and that is very clear. Okay, the danger of gift. You know, sometimes it's very simple to feel that. Okay, the gift can influence your decision that you make towards any activities related to the jobs or the project that you are undertaking. Okay, that is a red flag. Thank you, Dr. Zaki.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's another perspective, as well as which is related to the code of ethics. And we got another interesting quote, which is gift is dangerous. Okay, so please remember, gift is dangerous. Okay. Okay, actually, okay, to be honest, we have several more questions, but I'm going to cut down some questions because of time constraint. I'm sorry to the panel. I know you have prepared for this, but then I'm going to skip one question, but then I'm going to ask this next question to Professor Raj. This is okay. This is a scenario. Okay, I'm going to read this. Okay, because all this while we have been discussing about the facts and situation, but now I'm going to give a real situation so that the students can imagine. Okay, or maybe other junior engineers there can imagine this. Okay. So this is from the, okay, this is one of the questions. So I'm going to read this, okay, Prof. Raj. Okay, Aiman is a process engineer working in a refinery, and his plant uses a lot of chemicals and utilities, okay? So Aiman is a process engineer, and his plant uses a lot of chemical and utilities. As a result, he is being approached almost every day by various suppliers and contractors. One day, nearby Hari Raya, he receives a very tall and huge hamper delivered to his house. He realized it was from one of the chemical supplier. His wife and children were so excited to receive the unexpected hamper. Aiman knows that it is a gift from the supplier, and he didn't think he is obliged to do anything favoring to the supplier. This means that maybe he knows that he has the power. He can decide anything. But then the fact that the supplier is giving him something behind the company's back. Okay. So Aiman knows that this gift from the supplier, and he didn't think he is obliged to do anything favoring to the supplier, such as to buy the chemicals, okay, for the processing or for utility treatment. So what should Aiman do? He knows that this is something that is not supposed to do. Such same like what IR Francis just now mentioned. Gift is dangerous, but then the hamper already arrived inside his house. The family and kids are already very happy, excited because they never received a very tall gift. Okay, can you please comment on that?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, okay. Now, in this kind of situation, I think the professional code of conducts are quite clear. And also, if you look at other professional code of conducts from other countries, also are quite clear in terms of accepting gifts. All right. Now, whether like what Mr. Amru was saying, whether the company has a policy or no policy, to be on the safe side, it's better to not to accept the gift, and also to return the gift to back to the supplier, and also you can state the company policy on receiving such gift. If you don't have the company policies, you can actually inform. You have to report it to your superior. That will be the right action to take at this point. Now, I understand the kids are there and they are looking at it, but obviously you can buy them a hamper. Obviously you can buy them a hamper. You can probably buy them 2 hampers actually, and say, I'm gonna get you 2 hampers instead of 1. They'll be even more happier. Yeah.
Okay.
But the right thing to do is actually to return. My answer to this is very simple: return the gift and state the company policy. If the company policy does not have one on this, report it to your superiors. This is what has happened, with evidences lah. This is what has happened, and that's it. Not to use it at all. Yeah, that's my answer. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So actually, from all the scenarios, the situation, the example that we have discussed is very much clear, and it has been also mentioned in the engineering codes of ethics that we cannot receive gifts because it will make us smaller. Okay, based on words from Amru just now, we are going to be very, very, small if we accept it. So if we don't accept, our voice will be very loud. Okay, that's very good point. Okay,
yeah,
so
Dr. Zaki, just to
yes.
add on to what you
Okay.
said, and basically, like if you, just as I mentioned earlier about the code of conduct, even if you look at like the Japanese Professional Engineers Association, they clearly says that they use the word retain dignities and avoid acts to lose our confidence, such as deceptive conduct and accepting or giving compensation other than fair remuneration. So some of them are very clearly, they clearly state it, like they use the word dignity, so
Yes.
I think
That's another fantastic phrase from you. Retain dignity, even though you
Yeah.
quote it from the pen, but then that's something very, very interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm going to ask the last 3 questions. So after that, we will be get entertaining question from the audiences. Okay. Okay, this one will go to IR Francis. Okay. Is there any differences in terms of engineering ethics 20 years ago versus 20 years from now? Maybe you can comment on it because we are talking about engineering ethics into the future. So maybe you can comment on that. What will be the engineering ethics like in future?
Sure. 20 years ago was year 2000, right? And because we're now 2020, so 20 years from now will be 2040. As I look back 20 years ago, the fundamental canons of engineering ethics have not changed. I do not anticipate they will change in the next 20 years. The society today is paying more attention to engineering ethics as compared to 20 years ago because of the number of observed problems and lessons learned related to engineering ethics. Okay, some of the engineering ethics opportunities have been addressed with more detailed code of conduct, rules, and or guidelines. With the advancement of many things, uh, different ways or new ways of doing things, and the increasing speed of movement of everything, we should be prepared to address more engineering ethics gaps going forward. We may be heading toward self-regulated engineering ethics in the years ahead. So earlier, uh, we touched on engineering ethics related to digitization, okay, the challenges. So we with that anticipation of gaps that might or may arise in the future, we need to be more open to learning engineering ethics, right? And understand the development of the different code of conduct they, that that affect our work, okay, our undertaking, our activities. That's all. Thank you, Dr. Zaki.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayar Francis, for the explanation. So your response is almost like Prof. Raj just now when we talk about the digitalization, which is actually the future. So self-regulated is something that maybe, yeah, we need to further detail it, because there are many things, many hazy areas that we should actually emphasize and look into on case by case. Yeah, so I think that's something that maybe we can work on together to discuss further. We need to have
Yes,
a committee for that.
yes. Just take the digitization for an example. Okay,
Mm,
so we talk about software development. Okay, is one of them. Let's just take that as an example. A company, assume company B is a software company that is developing a software for sale, and it has hired some engineers, good engineers, smart engineers, to design the software, right? So of course, because they are engineers, they have this code of ethics to comply with, or the tools that they can rely on uh, to protect themselves from being wrong or doing the wrong things. And the engineering is one part, but the business is the other part, right? So the engineers will be working with the other
business.
professionals, okay,
Mm,
from different field, business, or maybe marketing, okay, and they may have their own code of conduct as well, right? So with the things moving so fast and the development of technologies, okay, so there is truly the need of learning, okay, the ethics in the other field as well, so that that uh, that the area of accountability or liability is clearly understood, right? So therefore, the engineer can be sure they are acting, doing things, okay, ethically, and that they can rely on the tools, okay, the code of conduct that has been developed, and which might or may need to be updated as time go on with more details to help them to stay in a safe place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the last point that you mentioned is something to do with the future of ethics as well as the cross discipline with other ethics business and so on. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much, Engineer Francis. Okay, I have unfortunately the last question. Okay, last question going to be destinated to Mr. Amru, and after that we will have questions from the students, and all the panelists will help to answer. Okay, Amru. Okay, this because I have asked the question about future to IR Francis as well as Prof. Raj. Now I am asking you as well. What can we anticipate the future of engineering ethics to be like? What will be the main challenges in your
Okay.
perspective? Because you are the industry now.
To be frank, the term engineering ethics itself, right, it seemed to be that quite new. It's actually very new in industry. People at the moment in industry, people talk more on core values and integrity. You know, it's on bribery, in terms of gift policy, in terms of whistleblowing, in terms of grievances. They do have this, but the term of engineering ethics, I'm not sure, but in industry level it seemed to be like very new. Even when our Francis just now mentioning about self-regulated engineering ethics, we do have self-regulated, but it's on DOSH, on DOE. People stress more on those compliance, rather than on engineering ethics. So since it's quite new for me, it's quite new in the industry. It will take. It depends on how the players, going to promote this in the industry. The basing is actually depend on the players itself, because the industry, we are at the receiving side. If there is a value in engineering ethics, if it is having a added value to the industry, it will become something we will have a very good progress in the future. Otherwise, people will concentrate on integrity, the one that we are commonly talk now at the moment, as I mentioned just now, on policy of gift, restricted gift policy, and so on. So if you're asking me, let's say if there is an engineering ethics in the future that's going to be expand, like the players is actually going to promote this aggressively, one thing that I can mention is about the main challenges is actually from the engineering perspective itself, depending too much on software, on the computer. That is become one of the biggest issue in engineering, because as we go further, when we're talking about ethics, when people depend too much, on computer, on software, people may lose the basic principle of it. I keep on mentioning this because I think, Zaki, you were the lecturer in UTM. Sometimes people, especially during final year design project, right? They
Yes.
depend on Aspen too much. They've forgotten, they key in the wrong thing. So whatever result come up from the Aspen, they just take it and they dare to present such result to the panel industry, to the lecturers. That thing is actually one of our biggest challenge. When people depending too much. When we are talking about integrity, we are talking about ethics of the engineering. It's more than that. It's beyond than that. It's about your design, like I mentioned just now. It's about the dynamic of the unit operation and so on. So I hope players like RF Francis, if this is something that new and core, you can promote this aggressively. And I'm sure that the industry level, they will see this as the added value. And for sure, we will put this into, part of our program and policy in the company. Exactly. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for your precious points and information, Mr. Amru. So we really appreciate. Okay, so we have concluded the phase 1 and phase 2 of the panels. Okay, there are some questions that maybe due to time constraint we cannot ask further, but then we have a lot of questions from the audiences, from the students. Okay, so I hope the panels can stand by for this. So we have just a few minutes, okay, for this, and then we will end the session. Okay, we have a question from Aiman Hakim. Hello, distinguished professors and engineers. My question is, suppose there is a plant disaster happen, what is the extent of responsibility will be held by the engineers according to the law? Wow, this is quite a heavy question. Okay, any of you want to start first or to answer? I'm opening it.
Zaki, I may be able to answer this from Dutch regulations.
Okay, go ahead.
From Dutch regulations, it hardly on engineers according to the law, unless the management able to provide evidence that the engineers is actually making a certain mistake intentionally, purposely doing that kind of mistake or misconduct. But according to Malaysian law, most of the law stated that it's a responsibility of the employer or management. So this is why you can see the company. This is why in many cases, the one that always go to court is actually the directors or the CEO. The bosses is the one who goes. So, but that doesn't mean that engineer will, escape from the accountability of the issues. If the management managed to prove that they already given sufficient resources, they already given that sufficient manpower, resources and a platform for the engineer to perform, and it is not being performed by the engineer, yes, the engineer is liable for the mistake as well. Okay, that is from a Dutch point of view.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe I think that answers very much. Okay, so can we have the next question, Ika? Okay, let's. Okay, while waiting for the second question to be inserted. Okay, there you are. The next question. Okay, this one comes from Liu Yongping. However, the world is not as nice as it seems to be. What should engineers do if whistleblowing might be life-threatening? Oh my God, this is a very, very good question, because I think a lot of people are facing this. So okay, I want to direct this question to IR Francis first. Your voice. Okay, Francis, can you hear? Okay. We cannot hear you. Maybe you're muted. Or is there some technical?
About now?
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay. Wow. Life-threatening. Whistleblower should be protected. So when we report something, okay, let's say I am the whistleblower, I expect myself to be protected, that my name will not be exposed, my detail, my telephone number, IC or whatever, right? That must be guaranteed, okay? I think there might be an opportunity, okay, for the DEM and IEM to address for this, the protection or whistleblower protection, okay? So that is not clear currently in the code of conduct. So what should engineers do? Because of the obligation under the code of conduct, okay, I think it is okay, again, to go to BEM and IEM, okay, to seek advice, okay, and when you do that, or when we do that, we want to ask for protection, okay. So before I tell anything, first I ask for protection, okay. It can be guaranteed, okay, then please proceed, okay. If the life-threatening issue is very obvious, definitely it needs to go to PRDM. Need to be reported, okay. That is the protection you need to seek for yourself or for ourselves. That's my answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Perhaps maybe either Mr. Amro or Prof. Raj want to add on onto the question.
I think on my part, I think the whistleblowing, yeah, I mean it's been going on around us, and there's always this life-threatening issues that is tied up with whistleblowing, and I agree with IR Francis. Like the whistleblower has to be protected by the law. I believe now we have a law that actually protects the whistleblowers, and I think that shouldn't actually stop people from whistleblowing if they see a need to it. Yeah, that's my point. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Amru, you want to add on or next question?
I think we better go for the next question. I think that's pretty much the explanation given by both panels already.
Okay. Ika, can we have the next question, please? Hold on while waiting for that. Maybe I will read another question. Okay, this comes from Iman. His name is Iman. Just wondering, what should the engineer do if the law in the current country that he reside have a more lenient law on ethics compared to the previous country he reside in? Okay, I repeat. Just wondering, what should the engineer do if the law in current country that he reside have more lenient law on ethics compared to the previous country he reside in? So he is like comparing between the regulation, ethics, and so on between one country and another country. So the question just appeared. Okay, I pass the question to Amru.
Okay. There is a so-called like codes in engineering, especially in industry. Whatever regulation set of SOP that you need to implement in your company, you are encouraged to ensure that the SOP that you impose is actually better than the regulations. For example, let's say the certain regulations say that you need to have 2 meter, then you need to have 2 meter distance on a certain regulation. If you can make it smaller, like for the 1.5 is safer, then you should take 1.5. The law will never challenge you based on the industry. So to answer these questions, I think you should maintain the practice of the country with stringent engineering ethics, because it will protect you more. It will protect you more in many ways. And then you can bring that to the next level. So when you have this in terms of compliance, to management certification, you are actually very well protected there. That's my answer, Zaki.
Okay, thank you very much. So there are some discrepancy somewhere here and there, but then the engineer need to do what they need to do, so they just need to be ethical, and then just not to consider where they can be lenient and not to be lenient and so on. Okay, I think even though this is a very, very interesting discussion, and then I hope that maybe we can pursue, but then it's almost 5 o'clock, and I respect the time of the panels, and they need to have some rest. Okay, so okay, for any other questions, if we haven't actually answered, please kindly you can continue putting the answers on the comment box or the comment section in YouTube. Hopefully later we can the panels and me and then my team, we can answer it. Okay, but then we want to wrap this up. Okay, we want to conclude our discussion and generate ethics into the future. So maybe if I can give you each panel 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, can you please kindly conclude your presentation, your talk? Okay, maybe we can start with IR Francis first.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Okay.
Okay. Well, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for all engineers and non-engineers as well to at least to talk about. To start to think about ethics, engineering ethics particularly for engineers. So, especially when we are the first year student, okay, this thing need to start now, not wait until we get into our first job after our graduation. we should start practice ethics. For example, we don't cheat while taking an exam. That is a practice, okay, that train ourselves also to comply with the engineering ethics, in the real world, working world in the future. And again, go back to my first thing that I asked you to take note. Always do the right things right. Okay, always do the right things right, and that you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayar Francis. I love the fact that you have provided us a few quotes. So, give is dangerous is another thing. So that's a bring back home. Give is dangerous and do the right thing right to be successful. Okay,
Yep.
and then let's move on to Prof. Raj. So, Prof. Raj, if you can summarize, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Saki. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I think as a summary, I believe that the the engineering ethics is very much related to, in order to apply this engineering ethic, it actually goes back to you as a person in terms of your ethical beliefs, yeah, and your moral sense of judgment. Okay, but then when we actually move into the engineering ethics itself, I believe the engineer should always strive to ensure that the safety, health, and welfare of the public is always taken care of and it's in the best interest. That's very actually it's very important, yeah, to put that in perspective. And they also need to build up their competency in their area of job, which means you are good at what you do. Yeah, that means you are a 360 degrees person lah. In other words, holistic lah. You're good in what you do, and from there comes that for you to be able to apply engineering ethics on a day-to-day basis. It's also doing the job competently and doing the right thing, as what IR Francis was saying. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Raj. Okay, so in short, in briefly, you mentioned also that engineering ethics is very important because of the environment as well, right?
Yes.
And other things. Okay, so there are many things. Actually, our session since 2 p.m. just now is full packed with information. And I recall your quote just now, which was from Japan, is the, oh my God, where is it?
The quote from Japan is to retain dignities.
Yeah, retain dignities, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one important bring home quote from you. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, thank you very much, Prof. Raj. Okay, and last but not least, we have Mr. Amru for last wrap up.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity as well. I learned a lot as well. Okay, just like to mention to everybody and to the student especially that the journey as an engineer is very long, and very interesting. I have to tell you. So, in order to make your path, your right, beautiful, in order to make your right is actually interesting. One of the key elements I have mentioned just now is on understanding basic principle of engineering to be a competent person. And for today's, I shall introduce new things to all students, actually engineering ethics as well. This is something that makes sure that you are at the correct path. And I can guarantee you, if you do this, your journey as an engineer will be very interesting and you will discover lots of stuff. And remember, since Professor and I has their own quotes, I also have the quotes. So remember, if you don't receive gift, your voice will be the loudest. Thank you very much.
Okay. So if you don't receive gifts, your voice will be louder. So that's amazing. Okay, the three of you have give your own three quotes. Okay, I won't be giving mine. Okay, because you are on higher level. Okay, the three panels. I'm just a moderator down there. Okay, thank you very much. So I would express my gratitude to Prof. Raj, okay, from Utah, and then IR Francis, and also Mr. Amru. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it very much. We hope you can be with us maybe we can collaborate something else, or maybe in this topic later in future, maybe. Okay, and for the students, okay, please take note on all the questions and all the facts, information. You will be using it to discuss the 10 case studies that will be presented to you tomorrow inside the Introduction to Engineering class. Okay, as well as I would like to remind the students, okay, the chemical engineering students, first year, okay, please take note on the reflection journal that you have to do, that need to be submitted this Friday. Okay, and then in case the panels, okay, all the panels and your relatives, your family or your friends or the students want to check out this video, it's already embedded in YouTube. Okay, you can visit the CEE UTM YouTube channel, and then it can be there. It's there, so you just play and then you can see. Okay. To those who have not subscribed, okay, please feel free to subscribe to UTMCE YouTube channel. You can also like and share as well. Okay, so I would also like to express my gratitude to the team behind the scene, which are Dr. Yana, Dr. Tengku Zalika, as well as Izzati. Okay, we are not seeing them, but they are actually working hard to handle the technicals behind the scene. Okay, so that's the end of the session. Okay, thank you very much again to the three panels. Okay, to the students. Okay, you can rest after this. So it's already almost 5 o'clock. Okay, thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, the